Welcome to episode 23 of the I Could Never Do That podcast, where I talk with people who are doing things that, to the average person, may seem literally impossible. But guess what? We're all average, and we're all incredible and capable of doing so much more than we ever thought. Now, it's been a few weeks since the last episode, and a lot of great things have been happening. Quite honestly, it's just been so busy and nuts. I haven't had adequate time to get some episodes produced and out the door, but hopefully that will change now. So a couple weeks ago, I spent a week in Florida where I was crewing for my friend Dana, who successfully completed her Ultraman. And if you remember, she was featured in episode 20 of this podcast. She nailed her Ultraman, which is a 3-day race and essentially a double Ironman. Actually, it's a little more than a double Ironman. On day one, she did a 10K swim, followed by a 92-mile bike ride. And then on day two, she did a 171-mile bike ride. And then on day three, she did a double marathon, 52.4 miles of running. And I had the honor and the pleasure of being on her crew and specifically helping her run several of those miles, about a marathon's worth, on that final day. And she crushed it. So we're all very proud of Dana. And I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 20 if you want to be inspired. After I got back from Florida, my parents came to visit here in Austin for a week. And yes, I thought about putting the old podcast mics up and trying to get some stories recorded and have them be a guest on the show. But you know what? My dad's 82, my mom's 79. And at the end of the day, I actually just wanted to enjoy my week with them quietly and doing some things that we wanted to do. So that was a wonderful visit to have them there. And also, it's been a big month for some articles that I've been working on. The March issue of Austin Fit magazine just came out, and I've got two pieces in that magazine. One is the health benefits of a minimalist lifestyle, and that features Courtney Carver, who, if you've been listening, was featured in episode 21 of this podcast. So I quote her a lot in her book Soulful Simplicity in that article. And the cover story. Yes, I'm very proud to announce that I had the cover story for the March issue of Austin Fit magazine featuring Lance Armstrong. That guy, people. I enjoyed my time, and he was generous with his time, spending over an hour with me in an interview at his podcast studio. And it was scary and nerve-wracking and so much fun all at the same time. I think the Lance that I was expecting to show up was not the one who did. The one who did show up was somebody who was calm, relaxed, ready to chat. Of course, talk about his podcast, talk about moving forward, talk about Austin and his family and why he chose to stay. And yeah, we talked a little bit about his past, but you know, I can't ask anything that hasn't been asked. And I'm not going to get answers on anything that people haven't already tried to get answers on. Does he have remorse? Certainly. Is he trying to move forward with his life the best that he can? Of course. So that's what we focused on in this piece for Austin Fit magazine. So if you live in the area, please pick one up. And if not, you can check out those articles online at austinfitmagazine.com. But here we are, back in the saddle with a new episode, or should I say, back in the paddle, because this guest, my guest today, is Aaron Gonzalez. And on April 1st, he's taking off to hopefully become the first person to do a self-supported stand-up paddleboard across the entire coast of Texas. Yep, self-supported stand-up paddleboard, the coast of Texas. He's doing it to raise money for an organization called Patriot Paws, which is an organization that raises money to train service dogs for veterans. And as you'll hear in this interview, veterans are very close to Aaron's heart. What prompted this crazy idea? well, ironically, as it usually is, was spawned by tragedy. What I learned from it, and what I hope you learn from it, is that life is more than just tackling one adventure after another. Helping and being of service is where true happiness lies, and Erin is proof that adventure and service are a recipe for personal fulfillment. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with Erin Gonzalez. All right, I am here with Erin Gonzalez, who I thought until, I don't know, earlier this week when I was researching, that your name was actually Erin Overland or Overland.
Right.
Because everything, your email was Erin Overland, your website. So
Yep.
what's that all about?
It's on my truck.
It's yeah.
So no, it's actually my Instagram handle, and I've just been kind of running with that. It's an easy way to just kind of link everything, and I think it's on my my YouTube channel, my Instagram, Twitter. I mean, it's kind of everything now.
Yeah. Well, and it speaks to the human that you are and the type of dude that you are, which is somebody who likes adventure and expeditions overland. I mean, you pulled up in your Land Rover.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that machine, because that's like your baby.
Oh yeah, 2000 Land Rover Discovery 2. I have a 2-inch lift, 31-inch mud terrain tires. Custom built my own roof rack for it, and then the entire truck from front to back, top to bottom, is 100% bed lined.
Man, so ready for anything really at this point. And It sounds like you've done a lot, with more to come, which we'll talk about. But I want to step back. I want to, because you and I don't know each other at all. We were virtually introduced. It was at the running event.
Right.
And it was, I believe it was somebody at the Pickle Juice booth said, you're doing this podcast called I Could Never Do That. Well, you've got to talk to this guy named Erin, who I thought was Erin Overland until today, Erin Gonzalez. And he's got some amazing things lined up. And literally, that was back in December. It's literally like March 5th now, and we're finally making this happen. But so tell me, give me your story. Like way back. Are you a Texan? Are you an Austinite?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was born down in McAllen, Texas. Technically, it's far, but no one knows where that's at. But I was born down there, and then my dad joined the Air Force. We moved around for, I think it was like 8 years, to Louisiana, Mississippi, and then when he retired, we came here to Round Rock, and just been living out there ever since.
And how old were you when you guys landed back in Round Rock?
I think it was probably like 5, 6, something like that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I've been in Austin for, I'll say, my lifetime.
Yeah, for sure. And the question that you never ask a woman, but it's totally cool to ask a dude, how old are you?
32.
Okay.
33 in May, so I gotta
woo!
get this trip done before then.
What day in May?
May 6th.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm May 17th, so we're both stubborn bulls. Or do you fall?
Yep, I'm still Taurus.
Oh yeah, we're both stubborn bulls. So yeah, you moved back to Round Rock, which is like suburbia. I mean, and even back then, 25 odd years ago,
Before
it was
Dell.
Yeah, it was like nothing. It was probably country back then. Where did this fever for adventure start to come into play?
Well, very fortunate. My dad was in the Air Force. He was also a doctor, so in a lot of his traveling to do either training and or just wanting to take us on a family vacation, we would always go out and do something kind of fun. So, we'd go out to, we road tripped everywhere. So that's also kind of what ties into the future. But, we drove out to Yellowstone and all through California, the base where they filmed Top Gun.
Nice.
We were out there in Miramar.
That's an actual base. I just maybe thought it was a set.
Yeah, no, real thing. Went and saw that, and Las Vegas, Grand Canyon. I mean, just kind of traveling all over the West Coast, and we always tend to do something kind of every year, and I think that just kind of stayed with me. As I got older, I was like, man, at the time I really started traveling, I was like, I'm 30, about to be 31, and no wife, no kids, no girlfriends. Like, when else am I going to have this opportunity to just go off and do whatever I want to do?
Sure. So
Did you go to high school in Round Rock?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep, Round Rock High School.
Okay.
04.
Yeah. Go whoever.
Dragons.
Okay. Go Dragons. And did you go to university?
Nope.
Okay.
No college. Pretty much right out of high school, I started working at Pavilion Lincoln Mercury. I was there for probably about a year. And then I went over to Classic Toyota, and I was probably there for about a year and a half. And then from there, just worked a bunch of odd jobs. And then I started working with one of my best friends who did custom designer tiles, all backsplashes and multi-million-dollar houses and stuff. So, but I mean, I was working with him that I had a lot of fun, and he just really inspired me to kind of go into business for myself. So, cars was always something I love. I mean, I've got tattoos. I've got a gear shifter on my hand.
Oh my God, I have to show that to my husband. That's hilarious, yeah.
And then I have this entire arm is just all biomechanical car performance parts. And I mean, cars has always been my passion. So I was like, I'll go into detailing cars. You know, it's second nature to me.
Yeah.
And so I did that for about 8 years. Everything.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to work on some of the coolest cars on the planet. I mean, anything from $8 million Formula One cars. I've done 9 different Formula One cars, all the way down to 1936 Auburn Speedsters and a few local celebrities. I mean, just all kinds of cool cars.
Yeah. So at what point were you now kind of living the dream? I mean, you're self-sustainable. You are the man. You're not working for the man. You are the man, making a great living, doing what you love. And you start to get this like restless spirit to see the world. What was your first adventure? What was your first taste of like, I'm going to just go do what I want to do?
Well, I don't know if I would say it came quite from tragedy, but it would be something kind of along those lines. So I was running my business, and then about 5 years ago, I rear-ended a car at 60 miles an hour on my motorcycle. And while I didn't have any serious injuries, I had a lot of muscle and nerve damage to my hip and lower back. Probably about a year-long recovery. It was 2 weeks before I could get out of bed to do anything. It was 3 months before I could actually sit up in bed. It was another 2-3 months of learning how to walk again because I'd been laying down for so long. And then probably like another 6 to 9 months of intense lower back pain where I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do, any kind of functioning job for the rest of my life. And so after I kind of recovered from that, just going back to work wasn't quite the same thing. It was a little more of a drag, and it was just like, oh man, I got to go work on this car for 8 hours. I got to lean over the hood. That means I'm not going to be walking tomorrow because my back's going to be killing me. And so as time kind of progressed, things got a little better, but it still just wasn't quite motivated like I was prior to the accident. And then I have 2 dogs. I had a pug and my dog Sky, my Doberman, and Jellybean was my pug. Was kind of getting a little older in life, and at 14 years old, I had to put her down 2 years ago, and it really hit me hard. It hit my dog hard. Sky was very emotional, and a lot of people wouldn't think a Doberman is, but man, she took it as hard as I did. And so kind of after all that went down, I had this trip planned for Big Bend National Park. I had never been out there. There's a big Texas overland group that was going out, and I was kind of in the middle. I was like, man, I don't want to go. I just don't want to be around anybody. And kind of last minute, I was just like, well, I'll go. The hell with it.
Yeah.
And then, so I went out there, and originally I was only supposed to stay out with the group for like 3 or 4 days. Went out for Thanksgiving, and then we were going to turn around and all come home. Well, it was in the middle of the national park. Like I stayed camping with them for, I think, 2 days, and then I stayed inside the national park one day by myself. And when I went to the ranger station, I was like, put me in the middle. I was like, I don't want anybody around. Just put me as far away from everybody as you can. And they found this one little spot in the middle of the Chechos Mountains that was pretty remote. There wasn't anybody around for 3.5 miles. And it was just unbelievable. I woke up to the mountains, right outside of my tent window, and it was just so unbelievably gorgeous. And especially at that time of year, it's not super hot, it's not freezing cold. So I went out, did that, and we stayed the night, and
it was you and Sky.
Yeah, just me and Sky.
Yeah. Oh, there's something about that area that's
yeah,
life transforming.
Yeah, well, the park is the size of Rhode Island. I mean, it's monstrous. If you drive it off road, it takes about like 9 hours to
oh my gosh,
pretty much drive the Rio Grande all the way through. And so I went and did that, and then I had to go resupply. So I drove out to Fort Stockton, and finally got cell signal again. Called my parents, and I was just like looking through my calendar. I said, "Man, I don't have anything to do for 2 weeks." I was like, kind of looking at Sky. We're sitting in the car, and I was just like, "We're not going home." Up until that point, like, I mean, I've been to many states. I've been out of country, but like, I had never personally driven myself out of state. And so I was just like, "Well, New Mexico's right there. Let's make a run."
Wow.
And so, 8 hours, whatever it was, to drive all the way up there, and we're looking at the forecast for where we're going to Gila National Forest. And it was 10 degrees the first 2 nights that we were there. But
and you're tent camping. You're not glamping by any stretch.
Yeah, tent camping in a summer tent that I got at Academy for like $50. So it was not ready for that weather either. But we resupplied. We went out there and stayed 2 nights on the south end, 2 nights on the north end. And then kind of the same thing. I was just looking around like, I'm not ready to go back.
Oh, man.
And then Four Corners National Monument's right there. So I drove up to that. And we made it the last like 15 minutes they were open. So I was like, woo! So went up there. We got our pictures. We got out. And then I was talking with my grandmother on the phone because she's a big travel bug and she loves following where I'm at. So I was talking with her and I was kind of looking at the map. I was like, Grand Canyon's not that far. It was like, why not?
I figure, like, once you get out of Texas, it takes so long to get out of Texas.
Yeah.
Once you're out, like, you might as well.
Yep, it's 6.5 hours in any direction, 9 hours if you're going to El Paso. So it's like, once you're out, it's easy. And so from Grand
you're having your Eat, Pray, Love moment. Like, that's, every female has read Eat, Pray, Love about the journeys to, find yourself and heal and... And you're having your
absolutely,
your man Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, just even though we were pretty much driving on pretty standard roads, nothing too exciting, but just going across that the different scenery, crossing different states, and it was really cold. So there's actually still a pretty fair amount of snow, 1 to 2 inches, kind of everywhere. It was absolutely gorgeous. I love cold if there's snow. If there's not snow, here it's miserable.
What were you getting from it?
Kind of that peace of mind. I mean, there were some other things I was kind of getting away from. I was talking to a girl for 3.5 years, and kind of in the end she didn't want to date. And that was literally right at the same time that, Jelly Bean I had to put her down. And, it was just one of those things. I didn't want to be in Austin. I just really kind of wanted to just unplug, get away from everybody, get away from everything, no cell signal, just get lost. And I think both me and Sky, we just we found a new passion for just being outdoors. And there's something really powerful, like when you're sitting in the middle of the woods, there's snow just on the ground, and
you have nowhere to be.
You don't hear anything. There's no one calling you. There's no, hey, this news story is going on, and there's no one bothering you, or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's silent, and it feeds your soul in such a way that you could never explain to somebody unless they just went out and did it. And even if you were doing it in a multi-million-dollar RV, or you just have a $25 tent to go off, that's something that everybody can experience. Mm-hmm. And it was something that, because I had owned my own business, I'd been working for so long and always have my phone on me, and I have to sacrifice so much. And it was just like, I was so much recharge that I needed to just kind of run away, get off into the wild, find myself again, and then come back.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you gone on that initial?
We ended up taking off for about 2.5 weeks, and I think we drove a total of about 4,000 miles.
Okay.
from Grand Canyon. We came back, and I made a stop in Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh, you did all the cool stuff.
Yeah. I always wanted to stop there, and then finally drove all the way back to Austin.
And did you feel like that was a fresh start, or when you came home, did you feel different?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of my clients wouldn't like it, but, kind of once I got back, I was like, man, I don't feel like working. I was like, I just don't want to. I had no desire whatsoever. Even more so when I came back, I was just like, I'm ready for the next trip. I got to take off. And so probably, what was it? I think maybe 2 months later, I took off on another trip. Or was it a month later? One of the two.
Yeah,
Either way.
Yeah.
It
Make enough money to fund the next trip.
Yeah, it was really soon. I took off again. And I went out to Flagstaff, Arizona, because I didn't make it out there quite that far, my first trip. And so from there, I went up to Utah and went to Zion National Park. Absolutely gorgeous. Everybody has to go see
Zion's
it.
amazing. Yeah. All of the stuff up in Utah, like southern Utah areas.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just went to there, went to Bryce Canyon.
Get
National
them while they're
Forest.
still national parks, people. Get there while we still have national parks, right?
Well, they're actually talking about raising the admission fees, I think, as high as like $90 to get in.
I did hear that. Which is sad and unfortunate that they have to do that to keep it going or keep it running.
Keep some of the visitors down, but also still maintain the integrity of the parks. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And so that was, it's about 2 years ago that all of this was going on, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And, but at that point it was more soul searching for you. This was a journey for you personally in healing. Family back here, do you have any siblings, any brothers, sisters?
2 older sisters. My parents are still married, and they all live here in Austin.
Yeah.
So.
And were they like, dude's got off, he's got off the hook, or what? Like, what's happening?
Probably more my mom and my dad. I think my sisters kind of more or less understood, what I was kind of getting away from.
Yeah.
I didn't quite tell them so much of the, the aspects of what I was kind of running away from, but.
Well, they're gonna know now.
Yeah, they're gonna know now. But it's also gonna be coming out in my paddleboard trip.
Yes.
That I'm kind of gonna get a lot of that off my chest, and hopefully just kind of put a lot of it to rest. I feel like I still carry it around every day, and I don't think it's one thing I'll ever truly get over. As a tourist, we're really passionate about a lot of things, and it's hard for us to let go of certain things. And it's one thing I don't think I could ever let go of, but. Just want to put it maybe a little further in the past.
Sure. Well, and I know I grew up in a pretty traditional household where, dad was the breadwinner, mom worked, but also raised 5 kids. And so with our generation, the fact that we prioritize or we hope to prioritize adventure and living life, whenever I tell my parents about some of the travels I do, my husband and I do have a small RV. Nice. They're just like, I can't even believe you can do that. How could you take that time off to do it? Like, it's so foreign to them to get out of the work, get paid mode. Yep. So I was, your dad, especially being, a physician, very military guy, like, was he supportive of this soul searching?
Yes, as long as the financial aspects of what my responsibilities here were taken care of. Especially once I got out, once I was typically out of Texas, he was always like, where are you going to next?
Yeah.
What are you going to see?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't been there in forever. It's kind of all those, like, he's reliving his moments through me.
Sure. I mean, they in fact fueled this passion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
From your childhood.
I got it from them. Great. They're responsible.
Yeah. It's always our parents' fault, no matter what happened. No, I'm just kidding. We need somebody to blame.
Yeah.
So were you an athlete growing up? Were you into sports? Because we're going to segue into some of your athletic endeavors and adventures.
Yep. I did rollerblade hockey for probably was like 2 or 4 years, something like that. And then I wanted something that was a lot more physically challenging, and some of the coaches and stuff wanted me to play football because I was a pretty fast runner. But I wanted something a little harder than that, and so I went into gymnastics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in middle school, I joined up in a boys' club, Acrotex. They were out in Cedar Park, and I did that for 6 years. Went to state every year. I mean, it was really tough, really grueling. Lot of injuries. But I mean, just in middle school alone, I was already doing like 40 hours of gymnastics a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my mom would drive me to it every single day, Monday through Friday. I would get out of school about half day, and then I would shoot over to the gym, and then I'd be there for, a few hours. And then,
yeah. Oh my gosh. What was the breaking point on that? Just burnout, or once you got to high school?
Once I got to high school, things kind of changed a little bit. At that point, my body had already kind of started falling apart, and my shoulders were always giving me problems, my knees. I'm not the ideal height or weight to be a gymnast. I'm a little too tall and a little too heavy to be the ideal gymnast. And I think like many things, once you realize it's not going to be a profession or it's not going to be a career, you kind of start moving on to other things. And so I transitioned from that to auto mechanics, and I did that for the last 3 years of high school.
Okay. And now, so 2 years ago, you take this first couple of trips.
Yeah.
What about 2017? Where did 2017 take you?
Ooh, that was a fun year. So that I did the trip up to Utah and back into New Mexico, and I got to see some of the other things I didn't see. So I saw all three of those. I got to see Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon National Park, and Canyonland. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I drove down to the Spaceport of Americas, the Virgin Galactic Spaceport. It's also a backup landing center for the space shuttle.
How cool.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Yeah. From there, I went to Guadalupe Mountain National Park, the least visited national park of all of them. It's also the smallest, I think.
Good to know. Must support.
Yeah. Show that Texas love.
yeah.
And I got back home, and then 2 months later, I took off on the next adventure that I had planned for a long time, and that was to rewind, for Christmas, my parents were going to fly us up to Maine. He has a timeshare up there, so we're all going to go out there as a family. Both my sisters, all my nephews, my sister's husband, my grandmother, we're all going.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we do family trips like that.
I love that.
Pretty
That's
regularly.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so, I knew that was going to be our Christmas gift. And so I said, nope. I was like, I'm not going to fly up there. I'm going to drive. There's too many national parks on the way. So I ended up riding my motorcycle from here all the way up to Maine and back down the East Coast.
Oh my God. In winter?
March. So it was about this time last year.
Okay.
March 1st, I think I took off. And so I went from here to Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas, to Kentucky to Mammoth Cave National Park, northern Kentucky to see Waverly Hills Sanitarium, the most haunted place in the United States.
So I've heard, yeah. Because I grew up in Ohio, so we always heard about Waverly.
It's the house on Haunted Hill. Like, you drive up and there's no hills, there's no nothing, but then you see this little castle up on the top, and it's literally the house on Haunted Hill.
Did you stay there?
I wish I could have. I made it there on a Tuesday, and they're only open on the weekend.
No!
I know. I was looking at it, I was like, can I go back that way?
Yeah.
I'll make it.
Yeah.
But from there, I went up to Chattahooga National Park in Ohio. From there, I went to Niagara Falls. I'd never been there. That was amazing.
Just go on the Canadian side or the American side?
I did not. I didn't have my passport.
Okay, so you stayed on the American side.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed the American side. I mean, the Canadian side has the view.
Absolutely.
But the American side, you're like right on it. Like you are looking over the drop.
The mist is sitting there drying.
I was thoroughly impressed with the American side. Sure. Yep. Yeah.
From there, I went to. From there, I went all the way up to Maine, and going through northern Vermont at that time of the year, unbelievably gorgeous. Unbelievably gorgeous.
Still in a spring thaw, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're catching, on a lot of that stuff, you're catching kind of their shoulder season where things are still shut down for the winter and not open yet. And I know that from a couple years ago, I ran the Boston Marathon, which is in April. And my husband and I took a trip down like the Eastern Seaboard afterwards. And we did, like Maine, New Hampshire, all along like Kennebunkport and all of that area. And was it Acadia National Park?
Yep.
Everything was still, and this was mid-April, everything was still like freezing cold and still kind of closed, but lovely.
Yeah,
so
it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of snow in between Kentucky and Tennessee, but I mean, it may have like sprinkled on us, like the snow we get here, here in Austin. It did that for maybe, I don't know, 20 miles or so, and then it was done. And that was actually the coldest part of the trip. Everything else was 50s maybe. Okay. So I mean, it was still gorgeous. No snow in Maine, none at all. It was amazing. We were at a ski resort, and I kept seeing all the cutouts for the ski trails, and I was like, what is that? And then I was like, oh yeah, ski resort.
That is insane.
Like, why are they cutting all the trees in these designs?
Two questions with this trip. So you took your motorcycle. Were you tent camping again with this one? And did Sky go with you?
No, she doesn't like the bike.
Yeah.
I've tried to get her into it. She won't even sit on it if it's not running. She just does not like the bike at all.
Okay, I had images of Sidecar with Sky wearing, the Snoopy aviator glasses.
I wish. Oh man.
Yeah, that's tough because she's your best friend.
Yeah, she goes everywhere with me.
You were gone for how long on this trip?
26 days, 20 states, 7 national parks, 9 national forests, for a grand total of 5,221 miles.
Oh man.
My first motorcycle trip out of state, and I went all the way up to Maine and back down the East Coast.
Anytime that you didn't feel safe, or I mean, here you are coming off of a life-threatening accident on your bike, and were there any moments where you're like, man, I wish I had a car?
No, absolutely none. And my parents, of course, my dad being an emergency room physician, it just absolutely does not like me being on a bike whatsoever. But he accepts it because I'm of age, and at least after the accident, I changed a lot of my riding habits, and I think I'm a lot safer now than I was then. So fortunately, I'd take a good with a bad, but as soon as I could walk, I actually bought another motorcycle.
Did you? Was your other one completely totaled?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you said you rear-ended somebody at 60 miles an hour, so
I
can't imagine much was left.
Yeah. Yeah, it was toast.
Yeah. And what kind of bike do you have now?
So that one was a Buell XB9, a 900cc. And I actually have 5 motorcycles now.
And if you're going to rattle off stuff, and I'm like, it's all foreign to me. Yeah. I guess we could just go to your website for people, because I know you.
I have all the bikes on my website. You show your different
bikes on your website, which is AaronOverland.org. Okay, yeah, I knew it wasn't a com. So yeah, definitely check that out, and you can also see his truck, which is super impressive and fun.
Oh yeah,
and. So now you've got this expedition planned, starting in April.
April
where
1st.
You are going to, it's self-supported stand-up paddle along the coast of Texas. So let's dig in deep on this one, because there's a charity component that I certainly want to talk about. Sure. There's a physical training component. There's a logistics component. And so I'm curious to know where this came from, how you even conceived of this. Has it been done before? And what kind of training you've done to prepare for it. So where did the idea come from?
The motorcycle trip. I did that in the entire East Coast. It was absolutely gorgeous. My first time being out of state. And I'd say for both trips, it's the same anxiety, the same pressure, same fear. You're scared of what you think not what actually happens along the way. And so, that was my first time riding out of state. How do I prepare for this? What do I pack? What do I need? What problems could I run into? Should I take my gun? Do I not need my gun? Do the states allow me to carry?
That's true.
DC, it'd been a big no-no.
Okay, yeah.
But So I was on the tail end of the motorcycle trip. My last stop before I came to Texas was in Mandeville, Louisiana. And I stayed there for 4 days just to kind of recoup because I had been beating the miles down. I went through from South Carolina to Louisiana in one stretch on the bike in one day. And I was going through a tropical storm just before Harvey. I can't remember which one it was, but it just dumped on me the entire time. So I did that, and Louisiana was my kind of resting point. Stayed there a couple days, washed my clothes. The same thing, just get ready to come back to reality. And looking online, and I'm just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And at that point, I had only paddleboarded once.
Like here on Town Lake with everybody else on Saturday?
Yeah, just went, rented a board, and I was like, man, that was really fun. I was like, I should get a board. If I get a board, I'm going to do something wild. Like, what can I do? I'll paddleboard the whole coast of Texas. And
like literally, that's what flashed in your head.
Yeah. I think I might still have the napkin of when I initially jotted down all of my notes, the mileage.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can find that. But so I came up with the idea, and then I'm looking on YouTube, researching different kinds of boards that I want to get. And I came across, and this is also one of my other big influencers for doing this for a charity, but I came across this gentleman that's out in Florida. His name's Josh Collins, retired Army Green Beret. He did a trip from Galveston paddleboarding all the way across around Florida, ending at the Statue of Liberty, and he did it all for his foundation, which helps raise money for veterans who have been or who have suffered from traumatic brain injury. He himself had been injured 5 times, and he was talking about how he was having problems with his attitude and just forgetting things, his balance, and just all the typical things that you kind of hear from, soldiers coming back who have, really suffered. He had all that going, and then somehow he got onto a paddleboard and just like zenned out. He was able to get his balance. He was able to kind of, figure things out again and just really put everything together. But I saw his trip from Galveston all the way up to New York City, ending at the Statue of Liberty, and I was like, coast of Texas? Nothing. Here he went like...
It's a training day.
Yeah, here he went some 2,700 miles. I'm like, coast of Texas is only 367 miles. But from where I'm starting to where I'm ending, it's going to be closer to 400. And then if I go intercoastal, a lot of that depends on the weather. It'll be closer to 450. Since April's a really crazy time on the Gulf, I have to
that's another
anticipate both sides.
Yeah, it seems like you're starting when all the spring storms are kicking in on the coast. And was that just one more element of like, I've got to do it now, or is it more of like, or otherwise it just gets too hot to do it? Or
No. So it's a combination thing. So originally the plan was to do this back in October. But then Harvey hit. I went out and I did some search and rescue operations out in Rockport. It was one of the first search and rescue crews out there, as well as, so we went out there for like a day or two. And by that point, pretty much everybody had already been evacuated. So we just turned around because there wasn't anything for us to do at that time. They hadn't even thought about, rebuilding processes. They were still just checking for the people that were still there. Nonetheless, so we turned around, came back to Austin, and then with the Texas Overland group that I'm a part of, it's like 4x4 camping. Same thing of like what I'm doing in my truck right now. So I had posted up there, hey, they're already calling out for people to come out. We have these awesome trucks. We have every single means of recovery, first aid, like all that stuff's just standard in our trucks. So it's like, if anybody can get anybody out or recover somebody, that's exactly what we do. So me and about 5 buddies, we loaded up our trucks, extra provisions, and we took off. And we went to the Katy Richmond area, primarily operating out in Cinco Ranch. And first day we got out there at 10 o'clock at night, and we did about 22 hours of operations that first day.
When were you search and rescue?
Yep. So first, I'd say like 6 to 8 hours because it was so late. Most of the neighborhoods were already flooded, and so we're literally kayaking down, someone's street. Hey, do you need any water? Do you need any food? Just stay put. We're trying to wait till the morning when Coast Guard, EMS, all of them start running, rescue operations. So at that point, we were just kind of seeing where people are at, and if they wanted to try and get out, if they had a ride, then we would take them out. And so that went till about 6 o'clock in the morning, and almost like right off the bat, one of the boats that we came down with had engine trouble. So 6 o'clock in the morning, we finally pulled it out, tried to figure out what was going on with it, and we're listening to the scanner on our phone, and we're hearing rescue operations calling out literally just a block down where we're at. So it's like, all right, let's go get them. We're here. So that's when we transitioned out to Cinco Ranch, and it was insane. So beginning half of the day, I'd say we probably got maybe like 3 people out, just because the water was still, I was grounding out. My kayak was hitting ground.
Yeah. It was obviously a flooding condition, but it wasn't like, at that point, was it receding or had the big storms?
No, the big storm still hadn't come yet, and the water was still kind of rising. And for their neighborhood in particular, it's a 4-lane wide with a little like grass median divider. But getting into the neighborhood, it was down and then back up. So you couldn't leave the neighborhood because it was like 5 feet underwater. But as you got to where the neighborhoods were at, the streets were flooded, but no higher than the curb.
Yeah.
So we're talking to people, seeing if they want to get out. And the people who are, we're working them out past that, 5-foot flood of water. But then around 3 o'clock is when it started to rain and the water started to rise like you would not believe. So these areas where I was grounding out in my kayak, and the people that were saying, oh, no, we're going to stay, like, this isn't that bad. Now they're like, hey, we got to get out. It's 3-4 feet of water at that point. And
these are families. These are parents with kids, elderly, like everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And then there were so many people that were like,
Katie's a nice area. Yeah. Like that's just
There were so many families that were like, oh no, I'm not leaving without your dog. Get your dog. We will get them out. Like there's plenty of shelters. They just have to be leashed, have a kennel, and bring food for them. And so a lot of people were, at least with pets, were hesitant to leave because of that. And then I'll never forget, there was this one family, this lady just had triplets.
Oh my gosh.
Still, like 3 months old. And it was just her husband, and the kids. And she was just like, I don't know if we, I think we'll be all right. And then as the water started to rise, it was like, all right, let's get you guys out and past this. And, but it was, as horrible as the situation was, I would also say it was very kind of, it was very fun and very inspiring because, everybody was so thankful that you were out there and you were helping, and just, there was a lot of good spirit kind of around the whole thing, and it really made me feel good. I loved it.
You find that I was just listening to a podcast this morning of like, what is true happiness in life? And true happiness in life is being of service to somebody else. Absolutely. Like it sounds like in that moment you had never been more like fulfilled.
Yeah. It was one of the best times of my life. I mean, it was both fun in the aspects of, being able to help somebody out, and you truly can't understand flooding like that until you see it. Like I see it on TV, going on other parts of the world, and it's like, it's like 4 feet of water. What's up with that? Like, come on, they can walk out of that. And then you start realizing all the other fundamentals that come with that, the bacteria and stuff that's in the water, and fire ants. I have scars all over my feet, it wasn't so much the ants that were floating in the pods, because everybody saw that, but like when you were on dry land, just out of the water, those fire ants would just scatter everywhere, and they were climbing up anything that was taller than the water. So, I mean, I have fire ant bites all the way up to my waist, and so we were out there for 5 days doing all that. And I got bit by a dog, terrified. One tooth went in the top of my knuckle, close to my index finger, and the other one close to my shifter. And the lady was going to try and walk the dog out. We're about a mile back in the neighborhood, and this is when the water's already coming up. So it's 3 feet where she's at, and it's like 7 feet where we're at.
The stuff that you don't think about. Like you said.
So she's the dog is swimming and she's carrying some stuff in her hands, and it's like, ma'am, come over here, we'll get you on a boat. Oh, no, it's okay, I'm gonna walk out. Like, you have no idea what's 2 blocks out. And a boat came by, and I was just like, come on, we'll get you on, we'll get your dog on. And we got her up, and I went to reach and grab the dog, and he just panic bit me just once real quick, and like, great, I'm in this bacteria filled water, and here I'm like, I'm not gonna stop until it's the end of the day. And so put him up, keep my hand out of the water, get all the way back to my truck, and bandage it up and get back out there. But luckily I had just had root canal surgery 2 days earlier, so I was already on antibiotics.
Okay, yeah.
Call my dad. I was like, double your dose. Try and keep that thing clean.
So, in all of this, you're finding now yet a new mission. You're finding yet a new service, a new purpose, so to speak. And is this where the real charitable arm is starting to come into play? Yeah,
it's really starting to kind of become a lot clearer. Obviously I wanted to do it for myself, just part of the adventure, part of the travel, the experience, the nature, you're by yourself. But then, I was really thinking about it, and I was thinking back to, Josh's paddleboard trip he called Operation Phoenix. He did his for a bigger cause than just himself. And it was kind of natural. It's like, well, light bulb, click. Yeah. I should do this for charity, but if I do, I want it to be for dogs. Or the other one I was thinking about was the Texas Officers Memorial Foundation. I have a lot of buddies who are police officers, and I really I back the blue. I respect what they do. It's not an easy job, and especially at that time, there were a lot of bad publicity on officers. So I was considering those two, and I'll never forget, I posted up on Facebook, if you were going to do something for a charity, what would you do it for? And I think I had said Austin Pets Alive or Texas Officers Memorial Foundation. I was like, well, what other charities would you possibly donate to? Of course, people are listing out stuff, great organizations, and one guy just simply put, people before animals. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess I can understand that. If you're going to donate, you donate to a cancer society or something like that before an animal society. But then I kept thinking, and Sky will never leave you alone. She is always, they call Dobermans the Velcro dog because they always have to be touching you, leaning on you, something. And Sky, of course, comes up onto the couch, and she just throws all her weight on me. And I was like, I should do this for service dogs.
Wow.
Because then it's the best of both worlds. So then with a 10-minute Google search of Texas service dogs, I came across Patriot Paws. And they help train service dogs for vets. It's all nonprofit. But even cooler and kind of an awkward thing, I guess, to be excited about is they also implement a prison program. So after the dogs are fostered for about 3 months doing basic socialization, things of that nature, they go to the prison in Gatesville, and the inmates will actually train the dogs. So it's kind of
wow. So it's multi-layered.
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah. It's, unfortunate that they're in that situation. And I can understand, but I also believe in second chances. So a lot of these people just, it's hard for them whenever they get out. What am I going to do? A lot of jobs won't hire them. But this gives them a whole new window of opportunity of dog training, being able to love something else and truly benefit someone else.
So these prisoners train the dogs, and the dogs then end up with
a veteran.
Warriors. Yeah, wounded warriors or a veteran. Oh,
yeah. So I came across that, and I was just like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It's I've got an awesome dog. If I didn't have Sky when I lost Jellybean, I probably would have fallen off the deep end. And I fear the day when she goes. But
yeah, how old is Sky?
7 years.
Okay.
Still young.
Yeah. She's pop.
Yeah.
So what kind of training are you doing for this? It's going to be quite the adventure. And while you are naturally gifted, you're an athletic human being. It's still going to be pretty taxing on your body and your shoulders, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of the whole bit. As far as training goes, I'm doing a lot of balance training. Pretty much everything I do in the gym is on a BOSU ball. I would say one of the first things I did and where we met was Vibram. I changed out my footwear. So now I only wear the goofy, 5-fingered shoes. And that's all I wear. I literally have 9 pair, and I think I'm going to get like another 8 or so as they get released. But just changing out my footwear probably has been the biggest thing. Because when I would paddleboard, my feet would cramp up after like an hour. And it's like, well, strength-wise, I can keep going, but my feet are killing me. And if I can't stand, then I'm obviously not paddling. So I switched out to the Vibrams, and it was a pretty easy transition. I was already used to minimalist shoes, wearing like Asics and stuff like that. So, the no padding was essentially like, okay, next. Right. So easy transition.
So what do the Vibrams do that help prohibit the cramps then?
Well, when you're paddleboarding, you use your toes a lot, doing little micro adjustments and balancing, and a lot more than what you would even feel or think. What could you equate it to?
Probably I'm envisioning, if this is a good metaphor, of when you're riding a bike, and here I'm staring at a room full of bikes, but like when you're riding a bike and you want to go turn left, you don't necessarily just like turn your handlebars left. If there's finesse in your balance,
exactly, when
you make a left-hand turn, so much of that's in your body. So is that like so similar?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing in the toes, and so that was kind of that first like, light bulb. All right, I'll try this.
All right,
and I would say that's made an incredible difference. But even just more than just paddleboarding, my knees don't hurt. My back doesn't bother me as much. I mean, there's still the pain and uncomfort feeling, if you're standing for 6 or 8 hours a day, but I've noticed a difference in my posture, how I walk, kind of everything, all the aspects. So now I swear by them. That's all I wear.
Mm-hmm. You're that guy.
I'm that guy with the creepy 5-toe shoes.
Sorry, I had 3 or 4 pair in the day. Yeah, I did. So what is the logistic plan then? You're taking off April 1st, basically. And obviously there's so many things that there are variables that you'll deal with when they come, but is the plan to do a certain amount of mileage per day? And do you have your start and stopping points each day already mapped out?
Roundabout. So because April is a real crazy time on the Gulf, it's kind of changing of the seasons, really high wind, but at least it's blowing south to north. So if anything does happen, it's going to blow me inland. Yeah. If I go outer coastal, I'll be roughly, let's say about a mile or less away from shore. So past the breakwater, hopefully in a little bit more calm water. So a mile offshore. I'll try and do roughly about 30 miles a day is the goal.
Okay.
But the biggest thing that's going to hurt me is going to be the wind, how strong the wind is. Everyone's like, current. Like, I'm a giant sail standing on top of this 14-foot board, and if the wind is blowing, you just fly with it. So, I'll try and go about 30 miles a day, and I have everything on the board. So I also have this other product called Creek Cooler. It's kind of like a mini kayak, but it's a cooler, so it seals up. So I'm carrying like some of my food, extra water, and stuff like that inside that because I kind of have a little too much stuff for my board. But for the amount of time that it's going to take, there's a lot of things that I have to bring with me. I have 2 different tents, one for daytime, one for nighttime. Roughly taking about 2 gallons of water.
And is that all going on the board, the tents as well? I mean, I guess, it's not like it's completely self-supported, so you don't have a crew on shore.
No chase boats, no chase vehicles.
Okay, no one's meeting you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have everything on the board, all the food, roughly about 10 days. And then very similar like what people do when they hike the PHC or the Appalachian Trail, they mail themselves resupplies. So I'm kind of doing the same thing. And then as far as water, I'll just refill from the beach, in all the major cities. And there's only 4 stretches that are about 50 to 80 miles where there's typically no people, no gas stations, restaurants, anything like that. So past all that, make 2 gallons last for 4 days, which everybody that's drinking water is probably cringing.
Yeah.
I naturally don't drink a whole lot of water.
Yeah.
I don't get dehydrated very easy. So I think that's going to be fine. And then the other question I always gets is communication. What are you going to do if something happens? Because a lot of the beaches, you don't have cell signal. Padre Island National Seashores, first thing I come up to, that's 70 miles of beach. There's no electricity, no power, restrooms, facilities, very few people. You have to have a 4x4 to make it all the way down, or anything past, we'll say, I think it's like the 35th mile. I'll end up carrying everything with me. So one of the other products I found, storm alert.
Oh.
One of the other products I found was the Garmin InReach. And through that, not only can I send and receive text messages via satellite, so I don't have to have a cell signal, but people are actually able to go onto my website and they can track me live. And it'll automatically update every 10 minutes.
Nice.
It shows me which direction I'm going to. It shows the plot of where I've been. So you'll be able to see progression, as I go. And it also has an SOS feature. So if I push that, it gets in contact with this company called Guardian, who then contacts my parents. And, I would have already talked with them. Said if I push this, then send help.
Yeah.
So kind of along the same lines. If I do need any kind of emergency food provisions, weather's bad, I'm not making the miles, I still have a means of communications with my parents that I can say, hey, mail me some food here, or I'm going to need a little help or something. And so I can still request it if I need.
Okay. Is that what's on your wrist right now?
That's actually the Garmin Phoenix, one of my other GPS trackers.
Okay.
But yeah, so I still have means of communication. I have food. I've got water. I've got, like I said, the tents, and kind of what I'm envisioning. So I'm not necessarily paddling in the heat of the day. I'll wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, break down camp, be on the water by 7 a.m. at sunrise, and I'll paddle roughly until, let's say, about noon. And then I'll go back to the beach, charge all my batteries. I've got solar panels, so I can recharge everything. 72,000 milliamp hour battery backups.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So like your typical one for your cell phone is only like 10,000. This is 72,000.
Oh my gosh.
I have 2 of them.
Okay.
And then solar panels, so I can recharge everything. I've got cameras, drone, GPSs, kind of everything coming with me to help document the trip, since nobody else is going with me. I've got to have video of the evidence.
Well, and you want to be able to
relive it.
And bring people along. I think that in order to appeal to the charitable aspect, which is a huge component of it for you. This isn't for ego necessarily for you. No. I mean, maybe a little bit, because we all do things that are self-serving to a certain extent.
I'm the first person to paddleboard the whole coast of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, like
solo and unsupported, I'll say.
Did you hear that?
Solo and unsupported.
So yes, I mean there is some ego attached to it, but if it was all about you, then it wouldn't be compelling, really, to me. It wouldn't. I'd be like, oh yeah, there's another dude trying to do something cool. But when you bring in this charitable aspect of it, and you are doing it to raise money for this wonderful organization, then you bring people along.
100% is all going to them.
Yeah.
Everything on the GoFundMe that I have going is 100% going to them. The reason why I wanted to do it that way is so, I mean, it's public. Everybody can see the dollar amount, how much is raised, and when I cut the check, it's going to do the same thing on camera. You're going to see the same thing. Not, oh, hey, $1,000 is missing.
Yeah.
All the businesses, very fortunate right now. I think it's 37 businesses have helped sponsor and fund all the aspects of this. So my $600 in food was taken care of. All of my dry bags was taken care of. My paddleboard was taken care of. The paddle, I mean, everything, every aspect of this has been I've been reaching out to businesses for the past year now, and it's all coming together. It's all like, we're down to the last 26 days, 25 days before I go down. And I'm very thankful, everything has kind of worked out. It sounds crazy to say, I'm glad Harvey happened, because there was no way, shape, or form. I mean, mentally I could have done it, but I didn't have the food. I didn't have the water, didn't have the dry bags, didn't have the GPS. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of didn'ts, and it's all just been coming together at the end. And it's like I said, I'm very thankful that it's all happened, and the businesses who have donated, it's going to be an amazing trip.
Yeah. Where can people donate to your GoFundMe?
So the easiest way is to go to my website, aaronoverland.org. And I have, if you look at upcoming adventures, I'm calling the whole trip Paddle for Patriot Paws. That's PAWS.
Yeah. not PAUSE. Yeah. PAWS.
Yeah. Paddle for Patriot Paws. You can even search it on YouTube, and it's the first video that pops up. And I have links to the GoFundMes in both of those.
Yeah. What scares you about this?
Typically, whenever I tell people I'm doing this, like, oh my God, the sharks. 13 different species of shark out in the Gulf. There are stingray, there's jellyfish. At that time of the year, the man-o-war jellyfish start coming in from Portuguese. Sun, mosquito, coyotes, rattlesnakes, spiders. I mean, it's all out there. A lot of people don't think about it. But
I didn't think about the wildlife aspect of it at all.
Camping on the beach, Padre Island, there's coyotes, rattlesnakes, all kinds of spiders. I would say of everything, the biggest thing that scares me more than anything else, more than the 14-foot tiger sharks, bull sharks, you name it, not completing for some unforeseen reason, getting injured along the way, not being able to finish. I feel like that I'd be letting myself down, but even more so, I feel like I'd be letting everybody else down that's been kind of cheering me along this entire trip. That to me is a pill I can't swallow. And I think back to like gymnastics, it's very physical, but it's a lot of mental. There's, once you start learning some of the advanced skills, you go into these things like, oh man, I can't let go of the bar. I can't do that flip. I can't do this. And you break through it. And very much like, if you ever listen to any motivational speaker of any kind, if you ever listen to any kind of pro athlete, anybody, of merit, they all say the same thing. The mental is the hardest part. Physically, as far as training goes, I mean, I don't think I could train for the next 3 years, and I think I still wouldn't be ready. But it's my mental aspect of it. Like, I'm gonna finish it. I have to do it. I can't let all these people down. I can't let the charity down. I can't let, my sponsors, everybody. It's, fronted money for me to do this, and that's the biggest thing in my head. Yeah. More than anything else.
Are you obligated to finish in the month of April?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if something does happen and you fall ill, or because who knows, you haven't committed to, I'm doing this in 30 days or I'm out.
No. Typically, I tell people I'll get it done anywhere between 14 to 25 days. Okay. Because right now, the wind and wave cycle is in about 3 days. Typically have about 3 rough days, 3 cool days. So I'm hoping at that time, it's going to be anywhere from 80 to 69 degrees. 80 in the high, 69 at low. So I'll be able to sleep on the beach without a sleeping bag. Great. That's one less thing I've got to carry. During the daytime, it's not extremely hot. I'm wearing this really nice, thin, anetic, t-shirt. Already blocks 30% of the UVA, UVB. So I'm not getting baked on the water. Yeah. June or July probably would have been a better time, but then I'd be contending with a lot more heat, 80 or 90 degrees to 100 degrees on the water. And yeah, it's a whole nother beast.
Well, this podcast is called I Could Never Do That. And certainly you're living a life of example of many things that I think people pigeonhole in their heads that they couldn't do. So we've talked about you like starting your own business and going into business for yourself. and being self-sufficient. A lot of people would say, I could never do that. You've talked about taking your first adventure when you had never even left Texas. You'd never left the country, which you did, and riding your motorcycle across the country. So a lot of people would never do that. And now doing this excursion, this is your big one. You also have little excursions that you've done as well that are also listed on your website. And I want to give you a forum to talk about any of those too. But this is truly one of those things that most people would be like, there's no way I could do that. What do you say to people, and having lived the life that you've lived in 32 short years? I mean, what do you say to people who have that attitude in life? What are your thoughts?
It's really kind of hard to, explain to somebody. I'm a very mental person just to begin with. Like, if I buy something, I can't leave it alone. I've got to put my own touch to it. If I'm planning a trip, I almost plan every aspect of it. And, as far as like when people say, I could never ride my motorcycle across country. Like, well, what's stopping you? It's $200 to go get a motorcycle safety course. Riding across country wasn't any different than riding 6 hours here in Austin. And I do that like almost every other day. I would say fear is probably the biggest thing which enables most people. And I don't like being scared of anything, or I shouldn't say, I don't like being scared of most things. And fear would be on, I guess, different planes. I mean, there's rational fear and there's irrational fear. Am I going to get out and walk on a high wire between two buildings? Probably not. If I had a parachute, I would consider it because there's a little safety net. I think my craziness and my fear, I try and keep in balance on rational. If there's a safe way that I think I can do it, then I will try it. I'm not trying to go skydiving without a parachute, not blindly going into things. I research. In the times when most people are going to sleep, I'm discovering the secrets of the universe. 4 o'clock in the morning, watching videos on YouTube and, researching and seeing what people are doing and traveling and how they're doing it. What do I need to make that happen? What do I currently own that I can use for something else? And so as far as like my life and how I try and rationalize and plan things, because I'm doing so much, I travel in my truck, I travel on my bike, I'm doing the paddleboarding adventure, I'm trying to do some stuff on kayaking and bicycling coming up. I try and look at something, let's say like a camera or a GoPro or something, like, man, I can use this on everything, and that meets my criteria. Okay, I can buy it. The GPS, I can take it with me on everything, and I have means of communication now. If something goes wrong, great, I'm gonna buy it. And so I try and look at things like that, but it's more fear of, I think, what keeps everybody stuck. There's it's comfortable is great. There's nothing wrong with it, and more power to people that can do it. I can't just sit still. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. I think too, one of the things I'm discovering is that people do crazy things. I'm using crazy in quotes because that could be any number of things. I mean, I say
I'm crazy.
Yeah, well, exactly. And you're not. It's just you're unique. I mean, other people, you're sitting in a room where I've got all these Iron Man posters, Iron Man triathlon posters, and some would say that that's crazy. And some would say running 100 miles is crazy. So our definition of crazy, it's very much in the quotation mark sense of it. But I feel like when people go on these types of excursions or these adventures or these races, they're searching for something. They're searching for happiness. They're searching for fulfillment. Do you feel like you're in search mode for something by doing this? Or do you feel like this is icing on the cake? Like you're already fulfilled and this is just icing on the cake and your way to give back?
I would say it's kind of a combination of both because, just in me preparing and training for this trip, I've talked to so many people and so many different businesses. And, I've talked about this on YouTube, and I'm sharing pictures and stuff on Instagram. So, to one aspect, I am very fulfilled because now people know about Patriot Pulse. They know about the organization. They know, what they're doing. And I think that just bringing light to something, I'm helping out. I haven't done anything, and I'm already, just putting it in someone's head, like in the back of their mind, that if they wanted to donate or do something, they could help that out, and that's multi-utilitarian. It's helping out. It's helping out people. It's helping out animals, and in so many different levels. But then at the same time, searching for myself, or I would say fulfilling myself. I mean, I think when I get done with the trip, I think I'll be pretty happy. But at the same time, I'll be like, man, what's next?
What's next?
What's going to be the next adventure? And I'm already kind of exploring that. What do I want to do next? But
yeah. And that's my big question that I ask every day. I ask myself that. I ask all of my guests indirectly. Are we doing these things that most people say I could never do? Are you doing these things because you're searching for something, or is it because you're already you're already fulfilled? And I just got finished crewing a friend of mine 2 weeks ago. She did what they call Ultraman, which is a 3-day race, double Ironman, basically. And it's not self-supported, so I was part of her crew. And at the end, there were only 39 people that did this particular one. 36 people, I think, finished.
Wow.
And at the end, all 36 people got to get up and give a speech at the awards ceremony. And these are regular people. These are you and me. These are not super stud athletes. I mean, a couple of them are, yes, but by and large, these are people that have jobs and families.
They just want to get out of that everyday grind.
They are just trying to. There's so much soul searching that's going on, and you find out who you are in those 3 days. There's no question. But what I really enjoyed seeing is that these people seemed so content with their lives and fulfilled as it was, and then this just became one more thing, because it may change them, but it'll change. When you cross the finish line of any race, you're euphoric. It changes you for a day, and then you're like, "What's next? What's next?"
Yeah.
And that restless spirit can be frustrating because we're never fully satisfied. And I think my quest in life and my question for people is what makes us fully satisfied? And I have to say, what I got from you today is these adventures are great, but what makes you fully satisfied is hearing you talk about your assistance with Patriot Paws, and most importantly with the Hurricane Harvey people.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's been a lot of fun. I think, if it comes to the point where I'm an old man and I'm laying on my deathbed, it's one of those things man, I'm glad I did that. I wish I had. I would say right now and currently, my biggest regret was I didn't go into the military. I wish I could have. My dad was Air Force. My grandfather was a surviving World War II vet. My other grandfather was in Vietnam. I think military life would have been just a blast. I think it would have been so much fun. I would have enjoyed it. But maybe I'm making up for that now, with a lot of my adventures and such. It's just, like I said, at the beginning of this, I'm 32 and I'm single. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids, which does make it a little easier for me. I have Sky. Sky has godmother. So when I go do these crazy trips where I'm on my motorcycle or I'm paddleboarding and I can't necessarily take her, my best friend, she takes my dog with no questions asked. It's just, when are you coming back? When can I get her?
Yeah.
And it's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best, and certainly anyone who hears this is going to be supportive of you as well. So let's recap. AaronOverland.org is your website where you can see photos. You can actually see a map of your intended destinations each day on this particular paddle. You list some of your smaller excursions that you've planned on taking. You show photos of all of your bikes. It's a pretty fascinating website. It's funny, the one thing that's not featured a lot is actually you. Because I was like, what's this dude look like? What's he all about? And you're not prominently featured on it, but your stuff, your gear is, which is wonderful. Where are you at on Instagram?
Aaron_Overland.
Okay.
And then AaronOverland.org is the website. And at the very top, it has links to anything associated with me.
Okay.
So the YouTube, all that stuff. The Track Me Live is on there. It both has its own tab, as well as if you're in the upcoming adventures and you look at Paddle for Patriot Paws, there's a Track Me Live. Underneath that, I have the cell phone number. It starts with a 3 something, but you can send me words of encouragement, and when I get a chance, I'll send it back. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for giving up a Sunday afternoon to come and chat with me.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks again for listening. And please, if you have liked this podcast and you have found it meaningful, please do subscribe, rate, review, and share. We're available on Apple Podcasts. We're available on Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Thanks again.